dos, tres.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of your favorite educational podcast, College Declassified, where we crack the trio code. I am your host, Patrick Sheard, joined by my two lovely co hosts.
Hey guys, this is Stephanie Rodriguez.
And I go by Jay, but my name is Janika.
And welcome to part two of our three-part FAFSA series. Like I said, we are here to crack the trio code. So, episode one of the podcast, we briefly touched on the FSA ID. And that's the first thing that you have to create before you start your FAFSA. I'm going to go ahead and let Stephanie give us a little episode one recap.
Yeah, so right, as he said, last time we talked all about the FSA ID. So just to give a little recap about what that is, the FSA ID is your first step in completing the FAFSA. It consists of two elements, a username and a password. You do need one to sign the FAFSA and to send it in electronically. So people tend to call the FSA ID an electronic signature. It's pretty much the same thing. The student needs to create one and the parent needs to create one. But if the parent has more than one child in college, they only need one. If you don't have an FSA ID, then you can print it out and send it by mail, which of course does take long, but that's also another option. And to create an FSA ID, you need your basic information like your full name, date of birth, social security, email, home address, all that good stuff. But that's pretty much about it. It's like one of the most important parts of the FAFSA and the first step, really.
And you can't even complete your FAFSA without having an FSA ID created. So, like, make sure once you are starting your FAFSA, you create your FSA ID. Super easy. It literally takes 3 to 5 minutes to create an FSA ID, and it'll follow you for your entire collegiate career. So it's going to stay the same. So make sure once you create your FSA ID, you have it written down so you remember it. And remember, it's important because you can't complete your FAFSA, you can't submit your FAFSA, you can't even start your FAFSA without having an FSA ID created. So definitely make sure you have the FSA ID created. Jay, is there anything that you wanted to add before I go ahead and move along?
No, I think
What
everything
you got to
sounded
tell me,
right.
honey?
I ain't gonna tell you nothing. I just thought everything was
Any
fine.
any tips, any tricks?
Any tips, tricks, or tips? I said that. No, not really. Unless no, make sure everything is correctly put on there. Exactly how it
Awesome.
is on your social security card is exactly how it should be on your FAFSA or FSA
Awesome.
ID as well.
True.
Awesome. Okay. Here at Talent Search, we make sure that we find the money, right? It is so important that we help our students find ways to pay for college because, as we all know, college is expensive, right? It's
Okay.
not easy to pay for college at all. So,
Not
here on the
easy.
podcast, every week we are going to provide 2 to 3 easy scholarships that students can apply. Some of them will require an essay, some of them will not require an essay. But this is free money. I wouldn't say free money, but this is money that's easily attainable, right? So, first scholarship of the week will be the Scholarships 360 No Essay Scholarship. This scholarship is open to all students, so high school senior, community college students, four-year college students, graduate students. It's worth $500, and all the students have to do is visit scholarships360.org and create an account. Once you've created your account, you will receive personalized scholarships and advice on how to apply for each scholarship each week. It's literally as simple as signing up, being active and reading their newsletters constantly, engaging with all of their content that they put out, as well as, staying subscribed to Scholarships 360. So the deadline for this no essay scholarship is June 30th, 2021. Again, that's scholarships360.org. The second scholarship for this week is the Create a Greeting Card Scholarship Contest. This was also posted on our TikTok, and if you don't follow us on TikTok, make sure you do at FAFSA Trio, so FCEA Trio, TRIO. And this scholarship is open to anyone. It's worth $10,000. And all you have to do is visit gallerycollection.com and create a unique and original greeting card. That's it. Simple, easy, straight to the point. Use your creative skills, create a greeting card, and the deadline for this scholarship is March 9th, 2021. Again, that's gallerycollection.com. The last scholarship that I wanted to talk about is the Frame Your Future Scholarship. This is open to those planning to enroll as a full time student at a U.S. college or a university in the fall of 2021. This scholarship is worth $5,000. And all you have to do is create some type of visual representation that expresses how you hope to achieve your personal and professional goals after college. So, all you have to do is visit diplomaframe.com and submit your work. This could literally be a photo essay, this could be graphic design, video, or whatever creative outlet you use. The deadline for this is April 1st, 2021, and that is not a joke. Again, that's diplomaframe.com.
Oh, April Fool's Day.
Yes, April 1st, April
Took
Fool's
me a
Day.
moment.
Well, before we get into the FAFSA and to the nitty gritty of the FAFSA, I want to go ahead and, like we said, this podcast is going to be educational. However, we do want to make sure that it's not completely educational. So we are going to throw in little side segments and have a little fun. So one thing that I want to do this week is called highs and lows of the week. So basically, each of us will give one good thing, so one high that happened in the previous week, as well as one low, so one bad that happened in the previous week. If no lows happen, that's perfectly fine. It's understandable. But for me, I will go first. So my high and low is actually one and the same. This past week, I unfortunately, through all the safety precautions, got COVID-19.
Oh no, you
So
did.
yeah, I got the COVID-19, which, at the end of the day, I did everything to make sure I was safe, but it happened, right? So that was my low of the week, finding out that I had COVID-19. However, the high regarding that is because I'm asymptomatic, right? And I have asthma. So I'm technically a really high risk person. It should really be affecting me more than it should, but I'm asymptomatic. So that's my high of the week. That's my low of the week, and I'm sticking to it. What about you guys? What high and low do you guys have?
My low is my sleeping schedule. 3 o'clock, maybe four is normal in the morning. At this current point of time in my life, I'm not too happy about it. And you guys know I love my sleep. So the fact that I
Yes.
can't go to sleep
Yes,
till
you do.
3, 4 in the morning is just baffling. And then my high, I guess because I finally got a pedicure since August, and my toes look
Okay.
pretty, like my toes look pretty cute. That, I think that's it.
That's a good high. I like that. I love pedicures. It's important to take time for yourself, you know?
Yes, self
Um,
care. Hashtag
mm,
treat yourself.
okay, so my high would definitely have to be our new president. Try not to say too much on the past situation we had, but yeah, I mean, that's something to look forward to. And I know a lot of people complain. They're like, well, it's not much better. It's still the same old,
Hmm.
situation. And yeah, I mean, things are not perfect now, but they're getting better. And I feel very hopeful for the future. So that's definitely a high. As far as a low, I
Yeah.
don't think I have one for this week. Maybe this crazy winter storm we've had. It makes
Oh,
it annoying to get
definitely.
out your house. But
Oh,
yeah, I don't really have a
Okay.
low.
I gotta get up an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah, to
I'm
clean
not
your
with
car
it.
out. It's
Clean
too
your car
much.
off,
It's too much.
warm up your car, shovel any snow that's in front of your house.
Okay.
Shovel the
But we,
snow.
but
Oh, your
girl,
boy. Cause I'm like, who?
Who's gonna shovel?
Like
Okay.
who?
that is true. That is true. I do have to
Crazy.
shovel the snow. I do. Yeah. But we lived in Chicago for all of our lives, so I don't know why we're acting like this is brand new stuff, right?
It don't matter.
It's a
I'm
brand new
always act
season.
brand new. It's just I don't
Never
like
stuff in
it.
the past. Never had in the past. Brand new to me. Everything.
Guys, for sharing your highs and lows of the week. So I want to go ahead and get right into what we are here to talk about. This is part two of our three-part FAFSA series, and this is going to focus specifically on the FAFSA application itself. So the student section, the parent section, any tips, tricks, and things that you need to know about the FAFSA. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the lovely Miss J to go ahead and kick us off with the
Ooh,
FAFSA.
yeah.
Okay, everybody. So I will be talking about the FAFSA. To me, every year I fill out the FAFSA. Yes, I fill out the FAFSA every year because I attend I take college course classes. So every year, once your first initial year is done, it's easier and it gets easier every time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um let's talk about, I guess, the first step, the students part, right? Remember how Stephanie was like, you put your name, address, phone number, you put all of that on your FSA ID. Well, when
Mm-hmm.
you sign in to complete the FAFSA with your FSA ID, all of that stuff that you have on your FSA ID is preloaded into the FAFSA. So that's your name, that's your phone number, your email, your social. So that's why we stress the importance of making sure everything is correct. Because if something
Mm-hmm.
comes back as what they would call inconclusive, because something doesn't match. So for those people out there who has apostrophes in their name, a person who has two
A
apostrophes
hyphen.
in their name, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that it's the same thing you put on your FSA ID on your FAFSA, okay? Because it will throw everything off. You'll be selected for verification or corrections, and you don't want that. You don't want to delay your money, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to go
And
through
we're
the
going to talk
little.
about the verification process a little bit in the next episode, actually, because I know Jay touched on it for a hot second. But
Oh,
verification is a process that we are going to elaborate on more next episode. So make sure you keep a pin in that. I was just going to say keep a little pin in that one.
oh, okay, yeah, because I do jump the gun. I'm sorry, y'all.
It's
It's a
fine.
lot of
Listen, this is
information, and we
information
try
that
to
they
get
need
it
to know,
out
right?
there as best as we can.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
So let's see. So we do create the start your FAFSA. It does ask for a save key, right? Your save
Hmm.
key, I stress to my students to make it something simple that you will remember, because it will be used every time you log back into your FAFSA. So say your internet connection like just janky, right? And it logs you out.
Hmm.
When you have your save key, you put it in and it's going to take you right back to where you was at, right? So say
Hmm.
um you was filling out like the school information, and get logged out. It's not going to make you redo the name. It's not going to make you redo anything. It's going to pull you right back to where you was at. So make sure you do a save key, something very simple. um Even if it's something simple, somebody cannot log into your FSA ID with it, because of course you have to log in with your FSA ID. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, then it's cool, because they still need your FSA ID. But don't do that. Don't do that.
Make sure it's
um,
something like complicated. Like for me, what I did was, if I remember, I used the last four of my university ID number, which I don't even remember what that is anymore now since I've graduated. But it was something that was simple that I knew at that time, right?
uh-huh. Rolling through the FAFSA, like I said, I'm looking at it through my head because I do it all the time. So you'll make sure everything as far as your demographics is okay. When I say demographics, again, that's the name, address, social, all of that, right? Then it's gonna ask you males if you want to enlist. Unfortunately, males, you do have to push the yes. Just in case that when there's a draft, which is highly, not, I wouldn't say highly unlikely, but it hasn't been for a while, you
Yeah.
guys will be the first pick. Okay, unfortunately, you have to. Okay, it does ask you
And just to kind of
the
clarify that,
huh.
I'm sorry, just to clarify that a little bit, because you said enlist. It's not necessarily enlisting in the Army, the Navy, or you're not about to be forced to,
Oh yeah,
go
no,
into
not that.
service,
It's just
but it's enrolling in the selective services. So if you turn, when you turn 18, you do have to enroll in the selective services, like Jay said, and you have the option to do that directly on your FAFSA.
yeah. Yeah, not saying that you're automatically in the army. Don't go around telling people, yeah, I'm in the United States Army. Don't do that. It's just, just back up. We back up, okay? Of course, they ask for if your nationality, not nationality, but if you're like a U.S. citizen, or if you, are an immigrant. It does ask that. It does get very deep and personal again, because it's free money that they're giving you. They have to make sure you're legit and you are who you say you are, right?
Yeah.
It does have a portion where it says, "Are you going to go for your associates, your bachelor's?" What I always do, I always put my bachelor's degree, my first bachelor's degree. Why? Because if you put your associates, they're like, oh, okay, that's only 2 years of college that you gotta pay for. Cool, fine, dandy. No, you want to put the bachelor's because then it'll be 4 years opposed to two. More money, honey. More money, right? And
Yes.
then what they also ask is if you want to do work study. Always say yes to work study. And I say this because work study is an extra form of income, right? It's an extra form of
Mm-hmm.
income for you, but it's extra money to go towards your schooling. This is money that the government does not tax. Of course, it's the federal limit, which is 725 still, I believe, which but it's still money that they don't expect you to have on your EFCs, your expected family contributions. So that money that you do in work study does not go towards that. We'll touch back on work study as well, why I think it's great because I did do work study. But moving along will be the parents' information, right? With the parent information, this is where it's asking for the financials because this is where they say, oh, these are the people who's going to pay for your college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, FAFSA digs deep. They want your parents' tax information, okay? So, for those of you who filled out the FAFSA for 21-22 school year, so 2021-2022 school year, they asked for the 2019. Yes, 2019
Yes.
taxes because we didn't file for 2020 yet. So, they're going to ask for the most current tax information. Now, that's where it does get tricky, right? If your parents filed electronically, we have this wonderful tool called the IRS retrieval tool. Pull everything from your taxes that they need because if you were to do it without the retrieval tool, then you're gonna have to go piece by piece and line by line, and it gets tricky. This is where a lot of people start to mess up at, right? They
Mm-hmm.
put in the wrong
Mm-hmm.
information because they didn't read the directions clearly, right? Anybody want to touch basis on the IRS retrieval tool?
Sure.
Yes.
So yeah, you made a really good point. One of the best parts of doing the FAFSA nowadays is that we have the IRS data retrieval tool, which means they take all of your tax information right from the IRS website and put it onto your FAFSA, which is great because, like you said, that's one of the main parts everybody gets stuck on. No one knows how to fill it out, and it is a little hard. But yeah, that's the great thing about it. Those who cannot use it, I'm going to tell you guys really quick where the instances where people cannot use the IRS data retrieval tool. So, if the parent is married and either the parent and his or her spouse filed as married but they're filing separately, then you cannot use the data retrieval tool. If one of the parents filed as head of household, you cannot use the data retrieval tool. If the parent's marital status is unmarried and both legal parents are living together, then you cannot use the data retrieval tool. And then, of course, for the parents who file a Puerto Rican foreign tax return or an IRS form of 1040, you cannot use the IRS retrieval tool. So there are instances where you will not be able to use it. But for the most part, I have a lot of people who are able to transfer that information over, which makes the whole process so much simpler.
So
Yeah.
much simpler.
And it just truly
Yes.
depends on how you filed your taxes, right? Because, like Stephanie said, people, if you kind of listen to what Stephanie said, the people who really can use the IRS retrieval tool has married in their title, right? So married to some capacity. So whether it be your actual parents and they're married to each other, they're married to somebody else, it makes it hard to use the data retrieval tool. However, you do have the option, like if your parents are separated, right? You could use the data retrieval tool and they file separately. If your parents filed separately, one filed head of household, like Stephanie said. So there are ways that you can use it, right? But one thing to kind of think about, or a way that I kind of pieced it together, if the parents are married and how they filed and they filed as married, then that's a no go.
Yep. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, I mean, it's a great tool. I love it. It makes things so much
Hmm.
simpler. And then we have students who have special situations where they don't know how to file. So I'll clear that up right now. So if your parents are divorced or separated but do not live together, then you're gonna use the tax information for the parent with whom you lived more during the past 12 months. So pretty much the parent who provides more than half of the support financially. Now, if your parents are divorced or separated, but they live together, then you will be using both parents' tax information. And in that instance, both parents are going to need an FSA ID. Just to kind of reiterate, the FSA ID is an electronic signature. So whoever's information you're using, they need the FSA ID.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed that we actually didn't point out here, which is actually a thing that we students actually should know, just kind of jumping back to the student section of the FAFSA, students do have the option to put up to 10 schools on their
Oh,
FAFSA,
I forgot about
right?
that.
No, it's fine, Jay. It's fine. It's totally fine. But yeah, students do have the option to put up to 10 schools on their electronic version of their FAFSA. If students do have to fill out the paper version of their FAFSA, they can only put up to 4 schools to send their FAFSA information to. But once you do the electronic version, which is actually the common version that people use, you have the option to put up to 10 schools. Now, this doesn't
And
necessarily mean that these are schools that you are going to apply to, but these are schools that you are possibly interested in applying to, right? There are so many instances where I help students who put 7 schools on their FAFSA, but they really are only interested in going for sure to the top 3 that they put on there. So,
right.
or 3 of them that they put on there. So, you have the option to put up to 10 schools. And what that means is that the FAFSA information will be sent to each school that it's sent to.
Mhm.
So, or that you put on the FAFSA. And some schools, what majority of the schools will do is that they will create a tentative financial aid package, right? So that once you apply to the school, they can actually send you an award letter if you make that decision to go to that school. Um, but yeah, so just wanted to clear that up because we did miss that, and that is an important thing to note about the
Thank you
FAFSA
for
when it comes
pointing
to the
that
student
out,
section.
Patty. That's
Of
really
course,
that's so important.
I dropped the
Specifically,
ball.
it's okay. It's
it's
okay.
fine. It's
There's
perfectly
so
fine.
much information when it comes to the FAFSA. But going back to what you said about the 10 schools, something important to also do is to put in an in-state school. And the reason
Mhm.
why is because once you put an in-state school, then you're kind of in a way applying for in-state aid. Um,
The map
Almost
grant.
every, yeah, so if you're an Illinois resident, then you can qualify for the MAP grant, which is literally free money for Illinois residents who qualify, which is usually based off income on what you put off in the FAFSA. So even if you really really don't want to go to school in state, make sure to put an in-state school so you can at least see how much money the state is giving you.
You never know what happens. Like me, I wanted to
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
Bowling Green. I still put, South Suburban, some Illinois State University. I did put on my first FAFSA, but I did put Bowling Green. I didn't go to Bowling Green, which is in Ohio. So I did was able to get the MAP grant when I went to South Suburban, guys. So
Yeah. And
easy.
normally, once you get the full amount of Pell Grant, there's a huge possibility you'll get the full amount of MAP Grant
Yeah.
also. So definitely, if you're an Illinois resident, it is imperative you at least put 1 or 2 Illinois schools on there because you never know if you decide to go to that school or not, right? We don't know what the future holds.
Oh, and then a little key, a little tip.
Hmm.
You are once the FAFSA is processed, which takes 3 to 5 days. You are able to add schools if you did not use the full 10 slots, and then you are able to remove schools. And it's very
Hmm.
simple. You just go to return user, put in your FSA ID, your save key, and then you go to the edit part and you're able to add or remove schools. Very simple, straightforward as well. If you need help, you can always contact
Okay.
Yes, yes, please. You can always contact us. We definitely will provide our emails at the end of the podcast. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you're just interested in learning more about the Talent Search Trio programs that we do have to offer here at FACEA, definitely you'll be able to send us emails. We'll provide those emails at the end of the podcast. Was there anything else, any other information that is definitely pertinent for the FAFSA that you guys wanted to add?
I think that we covered basically everything.
Oh, with the schools, it is going to ask you, are you going to stay on campus, live off campus, or if you're going to stay with a parent? It's very important that you pick the right, like if you are going to an in-state school, if it's far from home, then of course on campus. If you do a community college a lot of community colleges don't have on campuses, so of course it's going to be with parent off. But when you add on a campus, then it's letting the FAFSA and the schools know that you're going to need some money to pay for room and board. Okay, so
Hmm.
let's make sure we use that step very, very, very.
Yeah, it's definitely important, right? It's important, right? You want to make sure that you know, like, the FAFSA is going to get intrusive. They're going to want to know where, how are you going to be staying, where you're going to be staying at, right? And how you're going to be paying for where you're going to be staying at. So that also factors into every single thing that we do when it comes to filling out the FAFSA. One thing that I definitely do want to touch on here. So we're talking about filling out the FAFSA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important to fill out the FAFSA? Well, filling out the FAFSA opens up the door to federal aid. So there are four types of federal student aid that are out there in the world that people can apply for. So important. One, the first one is scholarships. The second one is grants. The third one is federal work study, like Janika touched on earlier, and then the fourth one is student loans. So we are going to go ahead and further dive into those on the next podcast. The next podcast is going to focus on the life after FAFSA, right? So we are going to dive into the four types of federal aid just a little bit more in the next podcast. I just wanted to let you all know this is what you're applying for the FAFSA for. This is what's so important. This is why you fill out the FAFSA. This is literally your gateway to help pay for school. It's so important. So definitely make sure you guys are subscribed to all of our social media platforms at FACEA Trio, so FCEA Trio, TRIO, across all social media platforms. Also, make sure that you keep an eye out on our TikTok. The scholarships that we mentioned earlier are also available on TikTok that we talked about. So make sure you follow that link tree if you do follow us. I do have a question of the week. So if you remember last time, we will provide a question of the week, and how to answer is that you will send your message to us directly on one of our social media platforms. So at Facia Trio, for the question of the week, who wants to go ahead and give the question of the week?
Okay, I can go since I picked up the phone. Okay, on the electronic version of the FAFSA, free application for federal aid, there is no limit to the number of institutions that you can add.
True or
Okay.
false?
Yes, true or false? I'm sorry.
So make sure you send that answer to us. DM your answer to us at Facia Trio on any of our social media platforms. Also, guys, like we said, if you want to reach out to us and learn more about the Trio programs, if you want to learn more about Talent Search and you want to be a part of Talent Search, you can always send either of us an email. My email is psheard, SHEARD, at familycentered with an ED at the end.org.
All right, and then mine is the most simplest out of the three. J Jones at familycentered.org. Make sure you put the ED, guys.
Thanks for saying that. That's so true. People think it's center. But yeah, mine's similar. So S Rodriguez, RODRIGUEZ with a Z at familycentered.org.
All right.
Awesome. And if you have any questions and want to learn more about the Trio programs, definitely hit us up via email, hit us up on our social media platforms. Make sure you DM us the answer to the question of the week, and tune in for part three of this three-part FAFSA series, where we will be talking about the life after FAFSA. And you will not want to miss that, because people think that it's over once they finish the application. It's not over. There's so much more that you have to do.
We just started.
We are only just starting. But thank you all for tuning in to College Declassified. Once again, I'm your host, Patrick Sheard,
And I'm Jay.
And I'm Stephanie.
and you all take care.